wanted to jump in on the TED debate for the mayor's neighborhood reinvestment initiative. Um, and I wanted to say that when I think about policy, I think about it in terms of how to produce an outcome that helps one person without harming another. Um, and that's based off of Pareto optimality from econ. And I'm going to try not to make this a whole technical thing, but essentially that's what the thought process is that you can create another output um, that benefits one person without harming another, and that would be Pareto efficiency. Um, so when thinking about the TADs, I'm thinking about how to create the best outcome that benefits Atlanta as a whole without harming uh, any pockets of Atlanta. And when we're talking about the TADs, we're talking about 17% of the tax base. Um, not a majority of the population fits into these tax allocation districts. However, they do generate quite a bit of funding. And if you know anything about the TADs, you know that when you live inside of the district, there's a base amount. When the district was established, there's a certain amount of revenue that's generated from a commercial or a residential property, and that goes to the city, the county, and the school district. Any increases to that, and of course, the TADs are used for investment. So, of course, there are going to be increases. Those increases then go to Invest Atlanta to carry out the reinvestment goals of the city or its current administration. So, there of course are some numbers floating around. It's 8 billion that the mayor's office is looking for to create the or to carry out the neighborhood reinvestment initiative. There's numbers talking about 5 billion. Regardless of what that number is, it looks like the main concerns would be APS's shortfall, which should be closing in 5 to 12 years. I don't think that it'll be completely gone, but I do know that they'll get more revenue as the TADs begin to expire, and that revenue goes back to its place, its natural place with the city, the county, and the schools. There, of course, is a loss in revenue to the county, and there is the ideal of displacement. Those are the main concerns. When looking at the policy, I think the main benefits are that the city has the ability to account for displacement. Whereas if we allow the market to handle this investment or the idea of investment, we know that that's going to mean building new commercial spaces and new housing spaces, and the people that get priced out just get priced out. And then, of course, it provides a certain amount of stability so that these pockets of Atlanta can then afford the ability to make choices that are more conducive to a reality that's going to promote better educational outcomes, better tax revenues, and just a general better society as a whole for the city of Atlanta. My concerns, though, is that the city auditor has not published the report on the TADs, and it doesn't tell you what the actual costs, not just monetary costs, but personal costs and resources, and the benefits the TADs have had thus far, and what the projected outcomes are to be. And I think that's a major issue for me, just because like I said, weighing the idea of how to produce a better outcome serves that serves a benefit to these pockets of Atlantans without harming the other pockets of Atlanta. Um, I would really have to see the the projections and the outcomes that we've had thus far. Um, with that said, I would surely support the idea. I would definitely support the people of the city supporting the idea, uh, because at the end of the day, APS is going to continue to have an issue because we're not in an economic environment for people to produce children. And of course, they get their state funding based off of a per pupil enrollment. So they already have 20,000 desks that are empty, that are vacant. And so they're already losing state funding. Um, and so the 16 schools that are at risk of closing, they may still have closures. Now, of course, we could look at the alternative and say if we don't do the TADs, they can get more funding. They may not have to close as many, but if we continue down the path where we're getting adults without children moving into the city, or adults that have children that are not of school age, and we're not seeing school aged population growth, they're going to continue to lose a certain pocket of funding, and they're going to be utilizing that tax base that comes off of property um, to maintain standards and I'm assuming to better fit what population we do have. I know that there's an idea of them giving 3 and 4 year old pre-K, universal pre-K, and that could serve as one of those benefits that would allow for childhood population growth. Um, but um, I would have to see the numbers going either way, right? And then, of course, the idea of displacement's happening already. Now, I work in affordable housing, and I work on the west side, but I used to also live on the west side. And what I can say is that my little corner of the bluff that I lived in, there is a lot of houses being built and there's apartments being built. Those property values are already going to go up. And there's a lot of people, a lot of older fixed income people that own the houses in that area. And those people are going to see their property values go up on their fixed incomes. It's going to be harder for them to pay for it. And if we allow the market to go in and do what the market does, there's going to be no accounting for that that discrepancy. And so when those people lose their houses, there's going to be no plan in place to protect them or to catch them. Whereas the city through the TADs, they could plan for that. And of course, it's just not economically feasible for a private builder to think about, oh, what are we going to do if people have to move out of a neighborhood? That's not what their objective is. So I think the displacement is already happening, just like the APS shortfall is already happening. Um, and so we would have to weigh everything out. I think that it's a good idea, but I think that we need more information as a city as a whole before we jump into locking in, pushing more tax revenue and building new structures and all of these things, um, and all of these things to put more burdens on fixed income individuals and culturally solid pockets of the city. But I will say though, to go back on the stability effort though. Um, I think that there is no greater duty of any municipality than to create a sense of stability where people can feel comfortable in the idea of living, growing, and I guess fulfilling their life goals in a given community. We have to create it in. We have to create. An environment where people grow up on places like the West Side or the East Side or what have you, and they want to raise their families there and they want to have generations of people living there. And that could produce the outcomes again for better educational attainment, better tax revenues, and just better outcomes for the city as a whole. So I'm always here for any plan that would promote the idea of creating that stable environment, but we have to see what the actual costs and benefits are. We have to see who's going to be harmed if we take this money and we shift it directly into this process. Is there anything in place that's going to prevent that harm from being extremely detrimental? We need to have all of those things on the table before we make an investment that's going to last all the way to 2050.